Before dying at 18, Family Affair child star revealed the horrible truth. She was once one of the most recognizable child stars on television, loved by millions every week. But behind the bright screen and the perfect image, something much darker was unfolding in the background. As the fame faded, the life she built inside Hollywood began to fall apart in ways few people ever saw coming. What really happened after the cameras stopped rolling has left many still asking questions today. Join us as we uncover the untold story behind the rise and tragic fall of Family Affair star Anissa Jones. A childhood before her fame. Mary Anissa Jones was born in 1958 in West Lafayette, Indiana, into a family that on the surface looked stable and promising. Her father, John Paul Jones, worked as a NASA engineer, a job that placed him in a highly respected and demanding field during a time when space exploration was a major national focus. Her mother, Mary Paula Jones, stayed closely involved in family life and the upbringing of their children. From the beginning, Anissa grew up in a home where intelligence, discipline, and achievement were valued very highly. Not long after her birth, the family moved to California because of her father's work. This move turned out to be important for what would later happen in Anissa's life. California in the 1960s was not only growing fast, but it was also becoming a central place for television, advertising, and film production. As a child, Anissa was described as lively, expressive, and very comfortable in social settings. She had a natural energy that made her stand out in everyday situations. People around her often noticed that she seemed aware of cameras and attention even at a young age. Her mother enrolled her in dance classes when she was just 2 years old, and by age 6, she was taken to a commercial audition, landed the role, and almost immediately found herself on a path toward a career in front of the camera. Inside her home, there was also a strong emphasis on doing well. Academic performance, manners, and behavior were all closely guided. While this structure helped provide stability, it also placed pressure on children to meet high standards from an early age. For Anissa, this meant growing up with the idea that success and approval were tied closely to performance. At the same time, there were quieter signs that the family environment was not completely simple. Her parents would eventually divorce, and her mother became a pushy stage mother who, after Anissa's father died, pushed her to be the family breadwinner. These dynamics shaped the emotional atmosphere in which Anissa was raised. As the family settled into California life, Anissa's entry into modeling and small commercial work began at a young age. This was not uncommon in the region where agencies regularly looked for children in suburban neighborhoods. Her natural appearance and expressive personality made her a good fit for print ads and early television commercials. These small jobs introduced her to professional sets, photographers, and casting routines before she reached her teenage years. The audition that changed everything. In 1966, everything changed for Anissa Jones when she auditioned for the CBS sitcom Family Affair. The show was being developed as a family-friendly comedy built around an unusual setup, a bachelor suddenly becoming responsible for 3 children. One of those children was Buffy, a young girl who needed to feel believable, warm, and emotionally real on screen. The audition process for Family Affair was competitive. Many child actors from across Los Angeles were brought in to read for the role. The production team saw dozens of young girls who could technically say their lines, but that was not enough for what they were looking for. Anissa stood out during this process for reasons that were not just about appearance. She had a natural way of expressing emotion that did not feel rehearsed. When she delivered her lines, she seemed calm, clear, and believable without forcing anything. One producer later said, "She didn't act like a kid who was trying to be cute. She was just Anissa and was honest and open." Her look also fit what television networks of that era considered ideal. She had a clean, simple, all-American appearance that matched the image CBS wanted for a wholesome family show. Once she was selected, approval came quickly. After landing the role, her life changed almost immediately. She moved into a professional routine that included regular filming schedules, script readings, costume fittings, and publicity sessions. Becoming Buffy. Once Anissa Jones became part of Family Affair, her identity on screen quickly became larger than her real life. She was cast as Buffy, one of 3 orphan children taken in by a wealthy bachelor. The character was designed to fit a very specific idea that television audiences of the 1960s expected: a well-behaved, loving, and emotionally gentle child who could bring warmth into every scene. Buffy was written as the perfect orphan child, someone who could show innocence without conflict and affection without resistance. Her lines were simple and direct, and her reactions were often emotionally idealized. This made Buffy easy for audiences to accept and admire, but it also meant that Anissa had to perform a version of childhood that was tightly controlled and emotionally limited. To match this character, Anissa's appearance was also carefully maintained. Her clothing was selected to reflect a neat traditional image of a young girl from a stable home. Her hairstyle was always kept tidy, often styled in a way that became instantly recognizable to viewers. Over time, these visual choices became part of her identity in the public eye. She was not just Anissa Jones anymore. She was Buffy, the TV daughter that audiences saw every week. As the show gained popularity, the line between Anissa and Buffy began to blur. Many viewers did not separate the actress from the character. This kind of public perception placed a heavy burden on her because it meant she was constantly associated with a fictional identity that she had to maintain even outside of filming. A 1966 article noted that she had a growing frustration over the fact that she was playing younger than she really was. She was a 9-year-old pretending that she's 6. Life inside the machine. Life on the set of Family Affair was not just about acting for Anissa Jones. It became a full system that shaped her daily routine, her education, her money, and even how she was seen by the public. Filming schedules were demanding. Even though there were child labor laws meant to protect young actors, they were often flexible in practice during that era. Long days on set were common, especially when episodes had tight production deadlines. Her education also took a different path compared to most children. Instead of attending school full-time, she received on-set tutoring. While this allowed her to continue learning, it was not the same as a regular classroom experience. Lessons were often interrupted by filming needs, and the structure of a normal school environment was missing. Over time, this created gaps in her academic development and limited her exposure to the social side of school life. Outside of filming, many aspects of her life were managed by adults connected to the show. Entertainment historian Jeffrey Mark noted, not only are they working as actors in a weekly show, but they're also required to do talk shows and publicity stunts and meet with the sponsors and fly across the country. Their time by contract belonged to the production company and the network. That's a lot of pressure to put on someone less than 10 years old. Money was also handled in a controlled way. As with many child actors at the time, her earnings were placed under financial arrangements managed by her parents or guardians. Trust funds were commonly used to protect child actors' income until they reached adulthood. While this was meant to secure her future, it also meant she had no direct access to her own earnings during her childhood years. The collapse of childhood. In 1971, Family Affair was cancelled. And for Anissa Jones, that moment marked a sudden and major break in her life. The show had been her daily structure for years. It set her schedule, defined her identity in public, and gave her a clear sense of purpose. When it ended, that entire system disappeared almost overnight. The cancellation did not come with a gradual transition. One day she was working regularly on a hit television series, and the next she was no longer needed on set. Unlike adult actors, child stars in that era were rarely given structured support for what came after a show ended. There were no clear programs in place to help them shift into teenage roles. Anissa and her representatives made attempts to continue her acting career, but the transition was not smooth. She turned down offers to work with Brian Keith again and reportedly passed on the role of Iris Easy Steensma in Taxi Driver, which went to Jodie Foster. She also auditioned for The Exorcist, but the role went to Linda Blair. As acting roles became harder to find, her public visibility also began to fade. Along with that came a loss of income, which added another layer of pressure. The psychological impact of this sudden change was significant. Going from being regularly seen and recognized to becoming mostly unknown in a short period can be difficult for anyone, especially a young person who had grown up in that environment. The sense of being discarded by the industry was something many former child actors have described. Life after fame. After Family Affair ended, Anissa entered a very different stage of life. One of the first major changes was returning to regular schooling. Instead of onset tutoring, she was now placed in a traditional school environment with other teenagers. This adjustment was not easy. She had spent most of her childhood in a controlled adult-centered environment, so everyday school life felt different and sometimes overwhelming. At home, tensions also began to increase. As she grew older, she became more independent and less willing to follow strict guidance from her parents. This led to growing rebellion against parental authority and more frequent disagreements about her choices and lifestyle. Her grades at Westchester High School in Los Angeles began to slip, and rather than fighting it out with her mother, she began to couch surf at friends' houses instead. Her mother reported her as a runaway and Anissa was sent to juvenile detention jail for a short time. During the early 1970s, California was also going through a major cultural shift. Many young people were experimenting with new lifestyles, music scenes, and social groups. Unfortunately, this environment also included widespread drug use, and Anissa was exposed to it through friends and social circles outside of her earlier Hollywood connections. She wanted to be normal, her brother Paul once told reporters. She just didn't know how. The final months. In the final months of Anissa Jones's life, her situation became increasingly unstable. She was no longer connected to the structured world she had grown up in during Family Affair, and her day-to-day life lacked consistency. After she turned 18 in March 1976, she received the forced savings from her salary on Family Affair, a little less than $200,000, which she spent almost immediately in just 4 or 5 months. Her substance abuse problem escalated from smoking weed and binge drinking to taking large doses of Quaaludes, angel dust, cocaine, and barbiturates. On August 28, 1976, while attending a party at a friend's house in Oceanside, California, Anissa consumed a potent cocktail of barbiturates, phencyclidine, PCP, cocaine, and methaqualone. She was found dead in a bedroom of the house. The coroner's report listed her death as an accidental drug overdose. The coroner who examined her noted that she had died from one of the most severe drug overdoses he had ever seen. She was just 18 years old. The news stunned the nation. Family Affair reruns were still airing across America, and viewers couldn't reconcile the sweet face of Buffy Davis with the tragedy of the young woman behind her. As columnist Marilyn Beck wrote at the time, Anissa Jones' death is a reminder that Hollywood's youngest stars too often grow up without a net. We loved her when she made us laugh, but where were we when she needed help? Anissa had no funeral and no grave marker because she had not wanted her grave to become a tourist attraction.